All righty, 54321 on the air. Mics are hot. We are ready to go. As always, we are broadcasting live from the Palacious iHeartMedia and Entertainment Studios here in San Diego, California. What show would that be? Of course, it would be Garden America. Been on the air now for many, many decades. I'm Brian Main, John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox. We are here ready to go. John is here ready to go. John, hi. Oh. John barely made it, but he's here because you know why? You have tenacity and you care.
Probably true.
That's definitely why. It's definitely why. It's not that his car just wakes him out of bed every Saturday morning and gets him out.
Alarm.
You didn't sleep well this week.
No, except for today.
Isn't that always the case?
I got up an hour and a half late.
The days that I can sleep in, I wake up, bright-eyed. And I want to sleep, but I can't.
Bushy-tailed, too. I noticed
a little bushy-tailed, yeah. And the days that I have to get up, I'm tired. What is that? What's that all about?
Yeah.
What time do you get up during the week?
Usually between 5:30 and 6.
Okay, I'm 4:30 to 5:30.
Yeah.
Depending.
Yeah.
And John's up at 2 a.m. At least this last week.
Yeah, and it's one of those things when you get in that natural cycle of waking up.
Oh, it's a cycle.
But as long as, like you say, you wake up and you're rested, it's good to go. But when you wake up and you just feel you could sleep longer, it's frustrating.
That's the frustration. Yeah. But you have to get up.
Yeah.
So anyway, we are here. We got up and we're here. And looking at Facebook Live, people are up and ready to go. And I want to welcome those on Biz Talk Radio. Thank you.
And then back to this sleep thing real quick is, the whole daylight savings thing. They talk about how it's taking a mental toll on people, and should we do away with daylight savings?
That's what hit me today.
I really do think it's a true thing because when it's dark and you're trying to wake up, it is not as fun as when the sun is out and it's time to wake up.
Although I've been getting up early for so long, on the rare occasion when I get up and I look outside and it's light out, I panic.
You don't know what to do. You're like, I slept in. It's noon.
Man, it's 6:15. I slept in. Anyway, that's okay. John made it. We're here, ready to go. We do have a guest today. You want to briefly touch upon that?
Yeah. So Brian Brigantti is an author. Gardening with Abundance. And we're going to be talking about your vegetable gardens that you're probably planting right now or thinking about planting
Edibles.
right now. And not only just the vegetable garden, but also the idea that, you want to share that vegetable garden with your friends, your family, your community. So, yeah.
I want to let our listeners know something because I'm still not convinced that I fixed the problem.
Yeah.
But some people got the newsletter yesterday a little bit later than they normally would. And I accidentally deleted the list of subscribers to our newsletter. And I think I finally recovered it. But if you're out there and you did not get the newsletter this week, my apologies. And if you just send me a note to john@gardenamerica.com, I'll put you back on the
Do we
newsletter.
want to, I don't know if I should open up this can of worms or not.
I don't know.
Anybody who's not a subscriber to the newsletter, go to our website and try to sign up for the newsletter, gardenamerica.com.
No, I wouldn't do that.
You wouldn't do, well, it's too late. It's already out there.
Yeah, it's already out there.
It's already out there.
He opened the can. The worms are out. They're all over the table.
We just want to make sure the link either works or we find out that it doesn't work. Anyway, gardenamerica.com. Go to the website. Do what you need to do.
I thought yesterday.
do something.
Maybe this is a good opportunity to see if anybody even notices. Maybe we don't need to put out a newsletter every week.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
no, a lot of people comment on the newsletter.
Yes,
they like the photos. They like the articles.
It's a good enough newsletter that we do need to find out.
Good enough.
No, I mean, it's
good enough. Like it's good enough.
It's good enough. It passes.
We should probably find out.
We did a survey last
year. This is probably an old saying that Tiger wouldn't have heard.
What's that?
When we were growing up, they'd always say "good enough for government work."
Oh yeah,
I kind of remember that.
Yeah,
I was going to say last year we did a survey and it. What's the term? Passes muster? What is that?
Yes, muster.
Muster is on ships, right?
Yeah,
muster.
So we know we've got that going for us.
I always thought that it was passing mustard. Passes mustard.
Pass the mustard.
Is that like when I was a kid? I thought his name was Red Skeleton.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, not skeleton.
Right.
What do you mean it's not skeleton?
Yeah.
No, it's skeleton. Oh, okay.
No one corrected me until I was an adult.
I'd like to look at Tiger to see his brain working. Do
He
you know who
doesn't
that
even
is?
know who Red Skelton is.
Nope, not a clue.
Comedian.
Yeah, I've heard the name before, but
40s, 50s, radio, 60s TV.
yeah.
I've got to clear my throat, but I don't want to.
Nice guy.
I got to say, I turned my mic on.
Painted clowns.
Hey, so John,
Yeah.
you've actually had some very misty days, right? In the mornings, you wake up and it's wet outside.
You know, I came to San Diego Wednesday, and it was raining down here.
Yeah, we had rain.
Yeah. I don't think I got any rain.
I mean, and for those of you listening in other parts of
The world.
the world and the
Rain's
country,
a big deal here.
well, it wasn't rain. It was like a very thick cloud that produced droplets of water as you walked through it, kind of a thing, right? Because I mean,
Well, I couldn't drive without my windshield wipers on.
But I mean, you know, other people have rain because it actually falls from the sky and lands on the ground. And
Is that how that
you
works?
know, we drive through clouds and consider it rain. Yeah.
No, it's rains here is usually front page news.
But I like that the soil is staying damp. That's
Yes,
the
it
biggest
is.
thing is
Yep.
that the plants are loving it because
Right.
then when it is sunny in the afternoon, things just look really just sharp.
By the
Nice
way,
and shiny
I brought
and
an
new.
outside palm into the house last week.
Ooh,
I wanted something live in there.
yeah.
So I brought it in, looked at it, and it had at the bottom, you know, all these old husks, just
Oh,
kind of dirty. I cut everything back, so I've got the main stalks, HB 101, Milorganite, and then so I watered it. So of course the dirty water goes down to the tray.
Largonite doesn't smell?
In your house?
Hold on,
Oh,
you're jumping ahead of me.
okay.
This isn't as bad as Biosol. So anyway, I put Milorganite, got the HB 101, gave it some attention, put some decorative rocks in it. Last night we were watching TV. Dana's by the couch next to where the palm is. She goes, "What's that smell?"
Yeah.
I go,
Sewer.
"I didn't smell anything." She goes, "Come over here." I go, "Oh, that's the palm." I'm very matter of fact. It's the palm.
Yeah.
Well, what's going on? I go, "A little bit of fertilizer. The water's a bit dirty now. HB 101. It'll go away."
Yeah.
Oh, you sure that's what it is? I go, that's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is. We got to give it time to settle. So and it's you.
Brian wasn't trying to cover up something else. Can't blame the cat for that one.
Yeah, I was going to say the cats weren't attracted to that
Oh,
smell.
our one senior cat who's basically every day, we don't know if it's the last day of his life.
Every day is a celebration.
He's hanging in there. Yeah, he's like, because he's obsessed. He wants to go outside and he wants to eat grass, anything, leaves. And yes, the other night, Dana had to put pillows and a blanket around the bottom of the palm because he was in there.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why I cut everything back, as well as aesthetically and just the health of the tree. But that's why we don't have live plants in the house. But I wanted at least one.
You know how they have those, I don't know what they call those, cat scratch poles?
We have a huge one.
Yeah, where they have like the little
Right.
rooms and stuff.
Right.
It'd be really cool if somebody got like a nice size fiddly fig or some kind of ficus, right? And can you imagine if they were able to put those in an actual tree rather than having it be like this standalone?
Or just have, it's a scratching post, but a tree.
Yeah,
or a ficus.
but I'm just saying like a real live one. Because I mean, obviously you can make one out of a fake tree or whatever, but that'd be really neat to have. I don't have any cats, but if I had a cat, I think I would definitely get like a good size indoor tree,
Yeah.
and then make it where my cat can kind of go into it. And then you look up there, and if your cat's black, it's like a panther, just hiding in a tree.
You're kind of setting up a little scene, little jungle scene.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Our buddy Kevin in Coeur d'Alene says, someday we might see the top 10 greatest quotes from the newsletter.
Yeah, hey,
Brian,
speaking of that,
that's supposed to, yeah.
Well, see, last week we waited. You know what? We used to do it twice. We'd do it like at the beginning of the show and then
beginning
second
of the
hour.
next.
Last week we didn't do it until the middle of the show, which was good because some people tune in late. Let's do it for the first time this morning, and then in about a minute we're going to take a break.
Or did we just do it on different days?
No, we did it twice. Because we'd opened up the second hour.
Really?
Back on the radio when
Wow.
we had 2 hours.
I don't remember that at all.
But you remember what you had for breakfast this morning.
Yes, nothing.
Toothpaste.
Nothing is something.
Toothpaste.
Anyway, we got about a minute. Quote of the week, John.
Nothing is something.
Yeah.
That was deep.
That's
was
a
deep.
quote that I'll use someday.
Yeah. Tiger Palafox, 2025. Go ahead.
The quote, Brian, is never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. That was from Margaret Mead, a social anthropologist, right?
Yep. Oh, Margot. All right, break time. We're going to get a hold of our guest. So when the camera's on, you'll probably see me on the phone. John and Tiger are going to talk amongst themselves. Those on Biz Talk Radio, welcome. This is Garden America Facebook Live. Do stay with us. I'm Brian Main, John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox. Happy weekend. Garden America continues after these messages and our phone call to our guest, Biz Talk Radio Facebook Live. Okay, just like that, we are back. And I say just like that, a bit quicker break on Facebook Live. Those on Biz Talk Radio, a big thank you. And thank you to Fertilome, our major sponsor. We're going to get Fertilome on the air here in the next, the not too distant future. Talk about various products because Fertilome does a lot more than just fertilizer. So that said, Tiger, John, we're going to go to our guest right now. Brian is standing by, Tiger, as we kick things off on this Saturday morning if you're listening to us live.
Yeah, this morning we have author and gardener Brian Brigantti from Tennessee, but from New York to Tennessee with his partner where they were able to set roots and start their own little homestead out there. Brian, thank you for joining us this morning.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so Brian, you've got a fun path as far as, coming from New York to Tennessee, but I mean, you didn't start in New York, growing up in Chicago. You kind of had this draw to the earth, to nature, to gardening. But then, going through city life for so long, what was one of the biggest changes or what was one of the biggest surprises going from New York to Tennessee that you when you got to where you're going to live there, you're like, wow, I'm not in New York anymore?
Well, the first thing I noticed when I first set foot on this property was just how quiet it was and how many birds there were. Like, I remember hearing so many different kinds of birds just like giving me a symphony, almost like they were welcoming me here. Definitely unlike the car horns or the trains on the tracks or the loud subways. It was just such a different quiet and peace that I never really experienced living in a city.
Yeah.
And funny enough, it was kind of hard to adjust to the quiet. Growing up in Chicago, I also lived in San Francisco, living in New York City. I was so conditioned to just like be on the go all the time that suddenly with all this quiet, all this solitude, all this time that I suddenly had, it was kind of hard to adjust to just being able to exist and be without having to be doing something all the time. And I was always fighting with myself and like feeling guilty for like not doing something, but realizing that was actually that should be our default as humans, to like just allow ourselves to be and to exist without this overwhelming pressure to constantly be doing something to feel fulfilled,
Yeah, and it's
so
funny
that kind of threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a big thing that people don't realize is that how much it will affect you because, when coming from a city and whether it's a big city or medium-sized city, there is that noise, that hum. That distant siren, distant car horn that you just always hear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, going into a rural area where you don't have that, it takes a minute to get accustomed to that.
Well,
and
it's
then,
so quiet, it's loud.
Well,
it's a loud quiet.
Yeah. I when I have
scared.
like friends or people visit, they're like actually kind of freaked out by how quiet it is.
Yeah. It's like you're waiting for something to happen.
Yes, I get scared. Like I do.
Yeah.
It's
you can hear a pin drop.
Yeah. So that is funny that you mentioned it because I don't think people kind of always remember that, but that is definitely something I think that people that come from a city to a rural area. That is something that is very true. Well, you're adjusted now, right? So
absolutely, yes. Now, anytime I leave or like I visit a city or I'm just traveling, I crave the quiet.
Yeah,
I miss it so much.
It's probably deafening, to you there now. It's like, oh my gosh, this is so loud.
Yeah. Subways feel really unnatural now.
Oh, that's funny. Well, gardening, your passion, growing food primarily. You're author of Growing with Abundance, and what inspired you to write that book?
Well, just for a little bit of context, I didn't grow up gardening. I always had like a deep love for the natural world, but growing up in a city, I never really had a means of like really immersing myself in it. So when I moved to the countryside back in 2019, I suddenly had all this time and space. And when the pandemic hit, there was this huge uncertainty of like what our food system was going to look like. So I started gardening and growing food for the first time ever in my life and fell so deeply in love with it. And I started sharing it on social media, and it just like blew up and took off. And I saw this like deep need and desire from people to learn how to grow food, to connect with the natural world, to learn about the food system. So with this sudden platform that I had, I really took it upon myself to teach people, how to grow and how to be excited and inspired to connect with the natural world and really share it in a way that was like friendly and warm and digestible and not so scary and overwhelming, because learning how to garden, there's so much to take in. Mm-hmm. So funny enough, in the midst of all that happening, Page Street Publishing actually reached out and asked me if I wanted to write a book. And I thought, why not? Because, when you get our platform is pretty big now. Like we have over 3 million followers collectively on our platforms. Something I picked up on pretty quickly is people are going to ask a lot of the same questions.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much engagement, it's like hard for everyone to keep up with what's being talked about. But it actually worked in my favor because I got to see like what people really needed, what people really wanted to learn, or what the most common questions were. So I used a lot of that to inform the information that went into this book. And yeah, so now anytime anyone asks me for, hey, do you have any tips for a beginner, or like, what's the best way to start as a gardener? Like, I just direct them to my book because it's literally everything that I think a beginner needs to learn how to grow.
That's a great description and a great way to put it, because, being in this industry, gardening, podcasts, radio shows, you books and all this other stuff, you do learn that people do ask the same question over and over. Oh, what tomato should I plant?
Yeah.
How do I prune a rose? All of these things. And as people are doing this, we kind of forget that, this is their first time. They're excited about it. They want to do the best possible job. I was at a customer's house yesterday, Brian, and I planted a citrus tree for him. And the reason why he paid me to come out and plant the citrus tree for him is because he did it already and he failed. And so he was like, I want, so afterwards, I think it took me 35 minutes to plant it. Yeah. I was there for an hour and a half.
What did he do wrong? Just off the top here.
Yeah, what went wrong with it?
So for him I think what it was, the watering. And this kind of comes up to a lot of things. But, the citrus trees, like those deep, infrequent waterings, and he just had like a drip system running 5 minutes 3 times a week. And so I just think he wasn't getting enough water eventually. And
That's not enough water.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, we're going to have to pause for a quick break. When we get back, we'll continue chatting with Brian Brigantti about the edible gardens that we're going to be planting here pretty soon, and his other platforms that he uses to teach people.
And those on Facebook Live, questions, comments, if you get any questions at all, let us know. John is monitoring very closely Facebook Live this morning, so we'll keep that up. Those on Biz Talk Radio are going to take a break. Big thank you to Fertilome Garden America. We continue. It's the weekend. I'm Brian Main. Brian's our guest. Tiger Palafox, John Bagnasco. As we say, used to say and still say, back after these messages. But whose messages? Find out on Biz Talk Radio. All right, we are back. Hope you enjoyed that break. This break's for you. All right, Garden America, we continue. And yes, edible gardens, gardening, Brian's our guest this morning, and Tiger, we're going to continue because a lot of interest this morning. Talk about his book, how he got started, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I just want to let our listeners know and people that are listening to this via radio right now that I did post a link to Brian's book, Gardening for Abundance.
It's on our Facebook page.
It's on our Facebook page
Comments,
right now, so be able to purchase his book or be able to kind of look into the book. Brian, one of the things that I talked to you about earlier this week that I really want to kind of dive into because I love this concept. And I don't think we've ever talked about it on this program before. But you have this sense of community and that you want to create. Tell us a little bit about kind of your vision that you would like to, this gardening for abundance, this gardening for community. What's your vision there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one of the greatest joys of growing so much abundance is being able to share it with your community, your friends, your loved ones, right? And something I learned very early on in gardening is a garden thrives in community. The more that you introduce into a space, the more biodiverse a garden is, the more likely it is to thrive. It really takes on a life of its own, and you build an ecosystem where everything works together to thrive and grow abundance. So I feel like that's a really great reflection of like us as humans and like how we should collectively come together to cultivate that abundance. So I feel like my mindset this year in particular versus the last few years that were very experimental as I was learning how to grow and garden. This year, I'm very focused on growing more abundance than ever, but not necessarily just for myself, but with community and for my community. One of the most common questions I get on social media, or not necessarily a question, but a comment, is people don't have access to space or they're growing on their balcony or all they have is their apartment. So something I really want to urge people to do is to like come together as community this year and actively seek out spaces where they can come together to grow abundance.
Yeah.
I have a lot of followers. A lot of my audiences are based in more urban settings, and I can speak from my experience living in Brooklyn, New York. I knew so many people who had a little maybe like 10 by 16 backyard, and they weren't doing anything with it. And, gardening is such an overwhelming thing. There's so much to learn, so much to take on, especially as an individual. So I feel like rallying up some friends, some family, some community to tackle the task of a garden will alleviate a lot of the stresses that come with it, make it a lot more enjoyable, and you get to share and reap the benefits of all that abundance with the people you care about.
Yeah.
And I think now, especially with like how overwhelming the world is feeling, we need community now more than ever. And what better place to cultivate it than a garden?
And it's so funny because, like you say, there's the people that have, meaning, they have the space, but maybe they just don't have the drive or the knowledge, like you say, like to actually do it themselves. But then there's also the have-not, where there are the people that want to garden, that love the idea of it, that have had experience it, but now they move to an area where they can't. They don't have the space. And so it's almost like connecting those two, two types of people is what, you're trying to do there. Now I'm throwing it out there, Brian, into the world right now. I mean, who would have thought 15 years ago that we would hop into a stranger's car and we would pay them to take us to someplace. Who would have thought 10 years ago that we would be going into other people's backyards and using their swimming pools or using their homes to stay while we vacation somewhere else? I think we gotta.
Oh my gosh. Wait, are we onto something?
I think we
got
an Airbnb for gardens right now where you can.
I think we're onto something. I think this is what needs to happen right now.
We have the people that have the yard and say, "Hey, I just can't do it, or I don't know it. I'm inviting people to come into my yard, and we're gonna plant, and we're gonna garden, and we're gonna cultivate something."
And the next person that comes in rips it out and does their own thing.
Yeah. Hey, it just is a thing, but like. It is true, though, because who would have thought 15, 20 years ago that we would be hopping into some stranger's car and say, hey, will you take me to the airport?
Hey, Brian, let me ask you this. Going back to – okay, here comes a bad cliche. Going back to your roots here. So you're getting into gardening, so on and so forth. Do you remember the first thing that you grew? The very first thing that you grew.
Absolutely.
And that was?
I will never forget it. It was kale.
Kale. Okay.
I planted kale, but more specifically, what I remember, like what screams out at me every time I'm in the garden, and just like the moment that really solidified, like, oh, this is what I'm meant to be doing, was literally breaking ground for the first time when I moved here and feeling the dirt in my hands.
There you go.
Yeah.
And as it was crumbling in my hands, I caught a whiff of it. I smelled the dirt. I smelled the earth. And I kid you not, I got a flashback when I was a kid in Chicago. I was that kid that was flipping rocks over, looking for bugs underneath, playing in what little dirt I had access to. And it made me so emotional in that moment. It literally felt like a homecoming.
Yeah.
And after, from a child and then having all this life experience in a city and life just kind of carrying me and taking me on this wild ride, being able to experience and feel that in that moment at that stage in my life, it was exactly what I needed at the time. Didn't even know that's what I needed. And that's really kind of what solidified it. This is where I'm meant to be. This is where I'm supposed to be. In the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, of all places. But, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
What are you closest to? What city or town are you closest to that would be a major town?
Yeah, we're about an hour and a half southeast of Nashville.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
So close enough to have some fun, but also far enough away to be quiet.
Yeah, and from a distance.
Yeah.
She's there whenever we need her, but
right.
I'm happy I can have my peace and quiet here.
I'm still trying to get over planting kale as the first thing.
I know.
How about that, huh?
I fell in love with kale.
Really?
You actually enjoyed eating it.
You did it on purpose.
Oh my God, yeah. I love kale.
Yeah,
There's so many ways to prepare it.
You did it on
enough,
purpose.
Though, I will mention, it wasn't a perfect experience. I planted my kale and I actually killed it. It died.
Oh no!
Yeah, welcome to the club.
But I didn't let that stop me from planting more kale and learning how to properly grow kale and having that experience. When you fail, when you mess up, and then you finally get that gratification of doing it right, it is so fulfilling.
Yeah.
You know what it is?
It's you kill something, y'all, don't give up.
You know what, Brian? It's the same. Here's the analogy. If somebody gives you money and you spend it, it's one thing. But when you had to earn the money and spend it, that's different because you put your blood, sweat, and tears into it.
Yep.
Exactly.
And it always tastes better.
And the garden is the best place to feel that.
Yeah. And with this idea of community and specifically with edibles is, you can share that. And I think that is one thing that all gardeners want to do I've never
share your success.
Yeah. I've never met a gardener that was like, it's all for me. I'm just going to keep it all to myself. They are always wanting to bring it in, share. They want to bring in what they made with it, whether it's like a lemon pie or, a meal or a dish or a salad.
Right.
And they say, it's from my garden.
But there's a difference between doing
oh my God,
that.
It's such a flex to be like, oh, I grew that.
Yeah.
There's a difference between doing that, Tiger, and putting the bag of zucchini on the doorstep and running away.
Yeah, really.
Truly.
And then, I mean, even think about how many public gardens we have today because they were private gardens of someone in the past.
Right.
That's true.
There's so many, and you're like the Ruth
Bancroft.
That was her house. The Huntington. That was their house.
Lotus Land.
I mean, so
Chanticleer in Pennsylvania, and I believe Longwood Garden too was a private garden that opened and expanded to the public.
They just want to share what they did. I mean, there's a place over here, Brian, up near Morgan Hill. I think it's in Gilroy, and they call it Gilroy Gardens. They did call it Gilroy Gardens for a while, but this guy was so into creating trees that were in basket shapes, or it was a chair,
furniture shapes.
Furniture shape.
That's cool.
So you're sitting in a bush that's a chair. But it's so amazing. But I mean, that took him generations to do. It's not something that happens overnight. Hey, we got to take another break. When we get back, we'll continue chatting with Brian about gardening.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Facebook Live and Biz Talk Radio. Going to take a break. Garden America, Tiger Palafox, John Bagnesco, our guest Brian. I'm Brian. Here we go. Another great break. Hope this breaks for you. Of course it is, because we're Garden America, and we make every break one that's tailored to your needs. Stay with us. All right, we are back having fun with the old break message going into the break. Anyway, if you are tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, this is the final segment, by the way, for hour number 1. Have to remind you of that. And that means, as John always states, news coming up top of the hour for Biz Talk Radio only. And we come back at about 6 minutes after 2 hours. Hopefully you can catch that hour, both hours. You can always tune into our Facebook live feed every Saturday, 11 o'clock Eastern Time Zone, 8 o'clock on the West Coast. And you can be part of the action. Questions, comments, so on and so forth. Tiger, as we continue with Brian.
Yeah, hey, Tiger, did we find out how big Brian's current garden is?
No, not yet. Yeah, Brian, out in Tennessee.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, funny enough.
What's your address?
When I first started to learn how to garden, one of the most common things I saw online, start small, they said.
Yeah.
And we did not. We went full force. We dived headfirst into everything we possibly could. We built I believe we have 16 beds in the space we're working in. It's about 5,000 square feet.
Wow.
That I'm growing, the vegetable garden at least. My partner is also an avid gardener, but he focuses more on landscaping and ornamental gardens. He also has a carnivorous plant nursery. There's just a lot. There's a lot happening here, and I really love that you mentioned how a lot of these big botanical gardens that we have now started as a private garden and expanded to something public. Mm-hmm. That is very much what we have in mind and a big part of the vision here at Red Leaf. We would love, love, love to create a botanical garden here, really in the heart of Tennessee. We are smack dab in central Tennessee, and there's just so much beauty that can be cultivated here that we would love to share.
Okay, John, you got some questions we want to get to here, a couple?
Well, Rick in Star, Idaho had a question about what Brian was how he was preparing the beds before he planted and what type of products he's using. Is he using fertilizers? Is he using mulch, compost? And then my question, to piggyback that question, Brian, would be what kind of natural soil do we find in Tennessee, Nashville, et cetera?
Ooh, okay. So I'll start with the natural soil. Here we have really dense red clay, something I never really experienced or saw before moving here, but honestly, I think it's a really wonderful soil. I feel like it gets a bad rep, but things actually can grow really well in it. But in order for vegetables, there is some amendment that needs to happen to make sure they really thrive. We have a lot of raised bed gardens here in the vegetable garden, and our soil mixes comprise of there was a mix we got from a local horticulture center called Morton's, and it's peat, a little bit of wood chips, some perlite. But then we take it a step further, and we actually make our own compost here. So we love to throw in compost, worm castings as well. Worm castings is our black gold. We love it so much. And this year in particular, we've actually gotten into the practice of throwing some sand in there, because something I've learned over the years is how quickly these materials in a garden bed can break down. Mm-hmm. And sand is a really nice addition, especially for raised beds, because it adds some more of that structure, that mass, and it does not break down. It takes much longer for sand to break down, so it holds a lot more of that structural integrity, while also adding the benefit of drainage in a bed, which can be very beneficial in the raised beds. So
very important, right?
There's a lot going on in that soil.
and Brian, you're not just an author. There's a lot of medias that you try to share this concept with, right? So give our listeners some. What are some platforms that you tend to share this information across?
Yeah, our main platform is TikTok, but this year we've definitely broken into YouTube. We also share on Instagram. I'd say those three are really the main platforms that we share on. But I personally have a deep love and appreciation for TikTok, because that's kind of where, our story was able to be shared on a platform much larger than anything we could have ever imagined. So, TikTok is kind of where the heart of our content creation is.
And so, there you share your kind of how-to videos and informative kind of things, right?
I share so many tips and tricks on how to grow. I love sharing the actual harvest that happen in the garden, what we cook with the harvest. Funny enough, I'm sure if you go check out our content, something you're going to notice very early on, very quickly, is I love to say the word abundance. If you haven't noticed from the title of my book. But funny enough, everything that's kind of happened and transpired has really been because of our community. It's kind of all manifested on its own because of what I see my community wants. And abundance was very much a part of it. In the beginning, when all of this kind of started happening, I shared a harvest very early on. And at the end of the harvest, at the end of the video, I was like, look at this beautiful basket. Look at all that abundance. A few days later, I shared another harvest video, and I didn't say abundance at the end of that video. And people were so pressed. They were like, we were so waiting for that abundance at the end of the video.
Oh, that's funny.
So that's kind of when I knew, there's something much bigger than just gardening happening here. There's a vibe happening, honestly. So now abundance has really become kind of like the ethos of what we do here and how we create content.
Red Leaf Ranch is your guys' thing. I'm going to share the link to that website too, because I mean it's a great spot to get kind of a lot more information about who you are and what you're doing, right?
Yes, absolutely. We have all the links there. We have the book linked there. I also do a little scattered throughout, but I do some blog posts. I share the garden plan of the year so people can see what we're growing, how we're growing it. Lots of really cool stuff on the website.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm sharing that right now. Brian, lots of good information. So fun to just chat. And, I love your idea of creating a community, within your own backyard for people and inviting people over because – we work together really well. And so, thank you very much for joining us this weekend. And I hope you have a great rest of the weekend and do some gardening.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's early spring here in Tennessee. It is time to be outside and gardening. I'm so excited. I'm ready.
All right. You take care. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Brian.
You too. Thank you all.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Garden with abundance.
There you go.
He didn't mention this directly. I'm going to guess in terms of his soil, he said it was red
clay,
red soil, clay, red clay, Georgia clay, the red clay soil. Right. He's got clay soil because Georgia, Tennessee, same basic region around that area. So bright red Georgia clay. There was a song. John knows this song.
Yeah. But
I remember to this day.
That's one of the worst soils to grow in.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Why?
You have to feed it. You have to put nutrients in it all the time, right?
And you have to watch the water.
Yeah.
Stuff can.
So it's worse than ours?
Oh, our soil's probably the best.
Yeah? Really?
Yeah. We got to take a break.
Because it drains really well and you can add organic material to
All right,
it.
we're going to take a break. News coming up on Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. We're going to get to your questions. We're back even quicker. This is Garden America. Do stay with us. We're back. We're just chit-chatting in case you heard that last little bit here. Anyway, Garden America's back. If you're just joining us, we are live if you're joining us now. If you join us later on, we're not live. We're pre-recorded.
So
don't you love that, John? Makes John's head spin. Go ahead, Tiger. I'm sorry.
I think we just finished off the last spot with some fighting words for people because to claim we have the best soil.
No, well, John needs to clarify that.
I know he needs to clarify. And I don't think he really thinks out of everyone we have the best soil.
That's what we do here.
But I'm sure there's places that, the people are like, nope, we have the best soil. And like, no, my soil's better than that.
All right,
soil.
let's approach it this
way.
You
want to know where the best soil
is?
Yes.
Where do you think the best soil?
What is the optimal soil?
Well,
no matter where you are.
Willamette Valley.
Yeah.
Where?
The Willamette Valley.
Okay.
In Oregon. Back east you have topsoil, right?
Yep.
That you can dig down, 6 inches a foot, and you've got good topsoil. We don't have topsoil in California, but in the Willamette Valley, their topsoil is 30 feet deep.
So shovel.
So you got 30 feet of
24-inch box tree.
30 feet deep.
You just use a shovel.
Yeah.
No digging bar.
No
jackhammer.
You never run out of good soil because you could shovel that 10 feet away, another 15 feet away.
And then also Alaska with its, remember Alaska humus? We used to bring it down here.
Yeah. Didn't you go up to Alaska one time years ago? You went to a show, didn't you?
No, I gave a talk.
That's right.
At the University of Alaska in Fairbanks in January.
Nice.
How about that? And that's before Airbnbs. That's before Facebook, social media. So you were isolated. Tell us the polar bear story. I love that story.
There were no polar bears.
That you knew
on my
of.
Trip. Well, actually, you couldn't see them because it was white. White everywhere you look.
Do you know that polar bears aren't really white? That's just a reflection. Seriously.
Yeah, they're really blue.
No, they're not white. I want you to Google that.
Oh, it's icebergs, I was thinking.
Yeah.
What are they then? Clear?
They're no, I think they're dark. I think there's something with the snow and the way the sun and the snow reflects. You've heard of snow blindness, right?
Yeah.
It's not that, but it's the fact that their fur and their environment makes them appear totally white.
Well, nothing surprises me anymore, but they used to have polar bears at the Detroit Zoo, and we'd see them in the middle of summer, and they were white, Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's Detroit.
Oh, okay.
Hey, we have a question,
All right.
a few questions
Please.
we should answer. One is from John in Newport Beach.
All right.
And he's putting in a square-foot garden.
All right.
And he had noticed in a previous newsletter, Patio Star zucchini for small spaces, and he can't find the seeds anywhere. And John, it's sometimes that seed's sold under another name, which is easier to find, and it's Astia, A-S-T-I-A, and I think Renee's Garden has it. And if you Google Astia, A-S-T-I-A seeds, you'll find the compact zucchini.
Perfect.
And let's see.
Good luck on that square foot gardener. I mean, have you ever done that, John? The square foot. I mean, you haven't had a need to, but have you ever just done it to kind of like try it out?
Well, I don't know if I ever had a need to.
Where you wanted
our
to
first garden in Detroit, we lived on a 40-foot lot.
Okay.
So, that's from one end to the other.
Yeah. So you jammed.
And there
some
was a
stuff
garage in the back of the house, and in back of the garage was a garden that I remember every year going with my dad to the local nursery to buy. They would they didn't have plastic back then, so all the seeds were in seed flats, or all the plants were in seed flats, and they would cut out how many you wanted. And every year I would beg them, can we get watermelon? No, we don't have room for watermelon. But he would get tomatoes, and we grew tomatoes, onions, peppers, carrots, radishes, lettuce, parsley.
All in that spot.
All in that little area behind the garage.
So it was just flowing out, probably.
Would you like to hear my polar bear fur story?
Right, Brian's still
only because I know it'll make you feel better.
Exactly.
Polar bears appear white, but their fur is actually translucent and hollow, and their skin is black. I rest my case, Your Honor.
Told you they're clear.
Do you know that Brian's shirt is actually pink?
And it's reflecting.
But in this studio,
black.
it appears black.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't all color have to do with light reflection?
Or lack of light?
Yes, it is. Now, that said, we all know that John is colorblind.
I'm not colorblind.
Yeah.
What, are you color challenged?
Yes, maybe.
Yeah. There's
There's
some color
some
blindness.
pastels that I have trouble with.
Right. That's okay.
But
that's just because he chooses not to acknowledge them, not because he can't see them.
No, and they have color correcting glasses now.
Yeah.
And
what a world, huh?
I have a pair, and I put them on so I can see what it is, the difference between what I normally perceive as color and whatever the glasses say the true color is.
And how was that experience?
It's not that much difference.
It isn't, huh?
No.
Okay.
But with the glasses, I can read do the color blindness test and get all the numbers
Shades.
right. Yeah.
Wow, what a world.
Yeah. Without the glasses, I only get 80% correct. So I got maybe 20% pastel.
I remember in
color
biology
blindness.
class in 10th grade they did that. They had colors and, okay, class, what number do you see there? And I think maybe like a few people, I don't see any number. Oh, you should see 76.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you're colorblind, huh?
You know when I found out I was colorblind was when I went down for my Army physical. And they asked me to read it. They thought I was fake. And I said, I don't see any number. Oh, you're colorblind. Go over there.
Yeah. Well, is that 4F? Is that 4F?
No, they didn't care.
Oh, they didn't care?
No.
Because they saw all people the same.
Yeah.
Well, I could make some comments now, and I'm not going to. Carla wanted to mention that she killed another Dieffenbachia. Help.
Ooh.
Well, Carla, why would you do that? I thought you loved plants. I thought you were a lover of
plants. I killed
Helen
Helen Keller 5 times. I told you that.
You killed Helen Keller 5 times.
5 times.
I don't think you were born yet.
Dieffenbachia, common dumb cane?
Dumb cane. Brian, you know why it's called dumb cane?
Why it's called dumb cane?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a few jokes in my mind, like you, but I'm going to filter it out and say, no, John, tell us.
Because of is it oxalic acid crystals that are in the leaves? If you chew on a leaf, your tongue swells up and you lose your power of speech.
Right.
Yeah. Matter of fact, you could choke to death.
Because your tongue would swell up so much you can't breathe.
Yeah.
We did talk about that years ago.
Yeah.
Now, I will say with those, one of the biggest is your source of the plant. You know, a lot of them come from box stores and ship them from Florida, barely rooted in.
Yeah.
And then you take it home and it just dies. And it's because the plant was never really growing. It was never really growing, you know. Because you can, those plants, they could look beautiful just off of a cutting.
Like a Christmas tree.
Yeah, they are. No, that's a great example. And if you brought home your Christmas tree, you'd be like, why'd this thing die? It's in a pot of soil.
Well, it looked great for a month.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a great example of it.
Yeah.
So if you got to be careful where you get it from and make sure it's rooted. And if it's not rooted, it takes a little extra care than just keeping it in your house.
The other 2 things are Dieffenbachia need a lot of light. Mm-hmm. And some people think that they're, they can put them in a room without or not near a window. And the other thing is they're, maybe because they're not rooted, Tiger, they're easy to overwater.
Oh, yeah.
You need a really well-draining soil. As a matter of fact, if I had a potting soil, I would probably add 20% perlite to the soil or maybe some cactus mix to the soil.
Dieffenbachia need a lot of light. It sounded like that was the entire name of the species you were giving.
Need a lot.
Dieffenbachia need a lot of light.
Yeah, Dieffenbachia need a lot of light.
Maybe I'm not up yet, Brian.
No, I'm enjoying you this morning. I'm happy to be here with both of you.
Yeah. But
a couple of minutes before the break, Tiger. Go ahead.
I think the biggest challenge that people run into them is they like what John said. They think because it's a house plant, it should take a lot of water. It should be able to grow in a living room with the windows closed and all this other stuff. And it's just not. It's just not true. They require almost like a patio or like a garden
like
room, a sunroom or something like that. My place would do
well
yeah.
in the patio.
Yeah. Oh man, it would thrive out there.
Are we? Yeah. I see on my peripheral comments. Are we good? Are we up to date here?
Well, I thought we were taking a break.
Oh, you know what? You might be right.
John's taking a break.
That's good. John is cognizant of the reality that surrounds him. We've got just less than a minute.
All right. Well,
John is cognizant.
Marguerite was mentioning that there's lots of river loam around the Sacramento River before Shasta Dam was put in.
Oh yeah.
And so the soils from what was left behind are a rich loam, and that's true in a lot of riverbed areas, either old riverbeds or, rivers that flood every year, like the Nile, right? Mm-hmm. Their life in Egypt would never have existed without the Nile
Had it not been for the Nile. And we're going to take a break on that.
Overflowing its banks, right?
On that note. All right. Break time here. We've got 1, 2, 3 more segments. A lot of show ahead of us. A lot of runway still to come here on Garden America. Taking a break for Biz Talk Radio. Stay with us. All right, we have returned. John is feverishly checking all the questions, comments. We want to make sure we don't miss anybody because every question's important. Every comment we take seriously.
Our listeners are very observant. Tanya in San Jose points out, isn't that one behind John?
One of the
Diefenbach,
yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and it's thriving, too. I watered it this morning when I came in.
Plasticus.
Yeah, Plasticus species, yes.
Hey, we missed a question from Veronica. I bought I think we talked about this one before, the Violetta fig.
Yeah.
And she's saying it's putting out leaves at the base of it. Do I take them off in hopes that it puts it out on top, or just leave them alone? So obviously the fig was dormant. Now it's starting to emerge out of dormancy. But rather than the leaves being out of the top of the tips of the branches where you normally see fig leaves emerge, this is coming from the base. Do you have any thoughts? I mean,
I would not take the leaves off the bottom because it's possible the top is
dead. Right? I was going to,
But they're not grafted,
right.
Usually. They're usually grown from cuttings, so you could start new plants. But leave the bottom, excuse me, leave the bottom ones on until the top does leaf out. And if the top never leaves out, then you can cut it back and let the bottom ones come up. But if the top does leaf off, you can go ahead and cut the bottom ones at that point. The bottom leaves now, as they come out, are allowing the plant to photosynthesize and build up its root systems. So the only thing I could think of is maybe trying to dribble water-soluble food over the stems and see if you can push out new growth.
Yeah.
Maybe a liquid kelp.
Yeah.
Put in a few drops of HB 101 and just see what happens. You can always take a knife and just scrape the bark up near the top, and if it's still green, there's a chance it'll leaf out. And
I want to be clear with what John said regarding normally, on a citrus or like a stone fruit, we would say if it's coming out from the bottom, that's not okay because, as he said, they're grafted, which means that tree on the top is no longer alive, and now the rootstock material is now trying to grow, and you might as well start over again. But figs are not grafted, and there's not I'll say figs, pomegranates, there's a series of different fruiting trees that are not grafted, but for the most part, a lot of them all are.
Trees, sometimes small fruits, like blueberries and raspberries, things like that.
Are not. So I think definitely leave the leaves out of the bottom. And then, like John saying, monitor. Carla, I appreciate your story about the client with the orange tree. Miraculously, I did get my little mandarin dug up and put in a pot, so I'll make sure to pay attention to the watering it. What watering schedule do you suggest in this case? So a potted citrus tree, does like to be dried in between waterings as well, like the deep watering like we talked about in the ground. So it'd be something like where you give it a good soaking, in a pot, maybe, a 5-gallon bucket of water or something like that. But then you're going to let it dry out before you rewater again.
You want good drainage then, right?
You do, yeah. Which is a lot of times why when you see a bag of citrus soil, it's almost like cactus mix, when you buy it at the garden center. So you let it dry out. So you're going to probably water maybe once a week, but a good amount of water when you do water, so it really soaks all that soil. Sometimes it's hard to resaturate the soil. Sometimes when you water, you wait that long in between waterings, the water just falls out the bottom of the pot. So in that case, you want to do like a slow drip in a pot to just really re-soak that soil and then let it dry out between.
But it should last at least a week, roughly speaking.
Yeah, if
you're watering,
that's kind of a vague description.
Yeah, right.
If you live in Palm Springs, that might not be the case.
But always monitor the soil. I think Kevin had some kind of a question about soil, monitoring the soil, or
I'm not a good person to answer.
Yeah, you don't do that
on that because
I just look at the soil and stick my finger in there, where mix it around, and if it's good to go, it's good to go.
You can look at the leaves. At least I can. I can look at the leaves and tell whether or not a plant needs water.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we'll just keep cracking here then. Carla, speaking of soil, can you add pumice, perlite, and sand to raised bed mix soil? So raised bed soil mix and use it as a potting mix. Pumice maybe, but a lot of times a raised bed mix has a lot of organic material, which if you use that as like a potting mix might create a little bit of a mucky mess for you.
That's a cocktail.
Yeah.
It depends. It depends a lot on your gardening practices, right?
Yeah.
I'm happy using Happy Frog potting soil, and that's all I use. It's just it adapts to my watering practices, and my plants do the best in it.
You don't like the Testy Toad. You like the Happy Frog,
The
right?
Happy Frog,
Yeah.
right. So it depends. If you never water, if you're away a lot, you might want a moisture retaining potting soil.
There you go.
If I had that, it would kill everything that I had because I just water too much.
Sorry, I got to read this, Kevin. I got to read this comment from Kevin because I just bought 2 blueberry plants. Why 2? Because the first one needed a mate for pollination. Blueberry plants are like cats. If you have one, you might as well get 2 so they could keep each other company when you are not around. 2 are more fun than 1.
And that's the story of the blueberry. And see, those are the comments we like. He adds a little humor to that.
I love it. Oh, my goodness.
It's a biblical quote, 2 are better than 1, for they have good reward for their toil.
And okay, give me the chapter and verse. Where's that from?
I think it's Proverbs.
Oh, I see the one where you're talking about Kevin's comments. Kevin, please remind us that we should probably own a water level meter. This is how I know Kevin never listens to us. Because we have never said you should own a water meter.
But don't you see it?
And we've only said you should probably not own a water meter.
But don't you like the way he posed it?
Yeah.
It's not that he doesn't listen.
Yeah.
It's more like he's making a point with a question.
Yeah.
Well, please remind us how,
And Kevin does listen all the
He
time.
listens very intently.
One
he knows
of our
what he's
favorite
doing.
listeners.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I'm just joking around. But yeah, I mean, the water meter things are,
I think
we
I had
use our
one
finger
years
You just
ago,
gotta,
and I used it for about a week, and I said, I don't need this. Because you know something? It wasn't always right. I'm like, my finger does a better job. I can tell if it's, if it needs water or not. We're about 30 seconds away from the next break.
Carolyn in Newport Beach is still laughing over your comment on the Testy Toad. We got to take a break so Carolyn can compose herself.
Compose yourself. All right, we're going to take a break. Hey, guess what, gang? Our next segment's one of our longer segments, and then another segment after that. So 2 more segments here on Garden America. Having a good time. Hopefully you are too, answering questions. We're doing gardening via the podcast, via Facebook. Alexa will play the latest podcast show for you. A lot of ways. Spotify, Google, we're everywhere. Right now, we're in studio. We're Garden America. All right, we're back.
Not with the kids.
We have a good. We enjoy the breaks. That little, what was that, 30 seconds or so in between? The mics are off.
Yeah.
All right, back to the
People
questions, the
lip-reading,
comments.
saying, what are they talking about?
It's
now?
Garden America. If you're just tuning in, joining us.
John in Newport Beach says that he grew up in the Willamette Valley and that I was right about the soils. He says all the farm kids that he went to school with have now converted their row crops to vineyards.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so you were right about the soil. I was right about the polar bears. Tiger was right about the citrus trees.
You were not right about the polar
I was.
bears.
You look at
They are clear. I said they
translucent,
were clear.
and their skin is black.
Yeah, you said that they were.
Go ahead.
They were white because they were reflecting.
Yeah, the translucence.
Tiger says that their fur is clear, and I just can't see that.
See?
Oh my goodness.
Now see if there's another. Nah, never mind. We're getting way off here.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
Answer, and I'll answer. I think it's Rick who asked the question, and it's so funny because Rick says, "I know you like ocean forests, but if you were to create your own soil from scratch, how would you make it?"
Oh, this is a John question.
Well, he would put all the products from ocean forest in it.
Yeah, just
Because we talked about this several times about how in the old days you had to amend the soil, you had to fertilize, do this, do that. A lot of these potting soils, especially this, has pretty much everything you would need in one bag.
You'd have to start with an organic base, so you need 30% organic soil. So you can use a planting mix, maybe 30%.
Mm-hmm.
You want drainage.
And then you add maybe 20% perlite for drainage.
Mm-hmm.
And you would go with perlite over pumice over sand.
Well, it depends what you're using it for. If it's in a pot, I would probably use perlite.
In the ground would be?
And not in the ground because it just washes away, right?
But pumice in the ground, you think?
You can use pumice in the ground. And also if you have a pot that's going to be top-heavy, the perlite or the pumice adds substance to the soil. Mm-hmm. So if you put something in there, it's not going to just blow over.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like Sharon used to say, it's mendok sai to make your own potting soil. Too much trouble, I used hundreds and hundreds of bags of it. So maybe, I'm not the best person to ask about making your own.
Yeah, but if whatever you've done is working for you,
just keep doing it.
Yeah,
right.
because then you hear somebody else say, well, maybe you should do it this way. Stick to what works for you.
Yeah.
Well, we live in a new era of gardening because, John, you could say, back when you first started gardening, you had to buy the steer manure and then you had to mix it with this and then you had to do this. There wasn't all these complete packages, also, when you went to a garden center, there was cottonseed meal, blood meal, bone meal, bat guano, and then you had to take them home and you mixed them up to make your fertilizer.
You had to buy the bats. That was the tricky part. You had to buy the bats and bring the bats home and get the bat guano from the bats.
But nowadays, so many companies have created their recipes for fertilizers, for potting soils, for planting mixes. You don't have to do that as much as you used to. They don't have the simples, like what we call them, where they're the individual items. That's not as normal anymore as it used to be. So,
I wonder how successful I would be if I had to start planting in the ground again. Back when I had my home near the beach, it was all ground. There was no pots, and I did not know what I was doing, but I did okay. But I've been doing with pots for so long now. That's what I'm used to.
You'd probably overwater stuff for a while.
I would. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Because now everything's in that pot, but in the ground, they're reaching out right, left, back, forth. They're going to get their
down.
They're going to search for water. They're going to search for nutrients in the ground. There's a lot more area to cover.
Yep.
So,
Veronica makes a comment.
How long are we going to keep doing this show?
No, she says tomatoes love bone meal.
Tomatoes love bone meal?
Yeah, what would you think my response to that would be?
I mean, I don't know where you're going with it.
I think John would say that's not something I would use.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't use bone meal in Southern California because it's alkaline and it...
Too much acidity?
Too much acidity.
Are you
no. The bone meal is alkaline.
Right. So you wouldn't. You
don't want to make the soil more alkaline.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
right.
I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah, too much.
Yeah, and what bone meal does provide calcium, which is why Veronica would say tomatoes love it, because that way you don't get blossom end rot.
Yep.
That's what prevents blossom end rot. But you can do the same thing with gypsum, which is not going to affect the pH of the soil.
Right. Mm-hmm. Are we still at 6.5 as a rule?
It's like 6.5 to 7 is ideal.
Yeah.
But some plants prefer alkaline soil. Lilacs, for instance. There used to be another garden show in San Diego, and it used to bother me every time I would hear them talk about planting lilacs and how you had to acidify the soil when you planted it.
No.
And, that's because people in Southern California don't know how to grow lilacs, but they want just the opposite. They want alkaline soil. Same thing with clematis, I believe. They prefer alkaline soils.
John Clematis, our buddy?
John Clematis.
You would say clematis, Brian.
I would.
You would say tomato.
You'd say chips instead of French fries, wouldn't you? If you were in England, you would.
I'm going to just start saying that just to mess with people.
And for like Doritos or other potato chips, it's crisps.
Crisps.
Yeah, crisps and chips.
Yep. Exactly.
I remember the first time I went to New Zealand and took my daughter down there, and we were visiting some people, and they said, "Put it in the boot."
Like, the trunk?
Excuse me. Yep. What do you? Yeah, just put it in the boot. I said. I looked around, looked at my shoes. I said,
John said, "I feel very uncomfortable right now."
Yeah, I apologize. I have no idea what you're talking about. That being the kind of British word for
trunk. Yeah, the trunk of your
Yeah.
car. And what do they call trucks? They're
trucks.
Yeah, trucks.
Like a pickup truck?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, come on! Somebody on Facebook's
in England.
Yes.
They don't call them trucks.
No, they're
lifts. Like a
lift
semi-truck.
is an elevator.
They call semi-trucks something else. Like a pickup truck?
Come on, somebody jump in on Facebook here. We'll figure it out.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Never.
There's another word.
I'm not part of that world, Brian.
A long boot?
Oh, my God. Yeah, anyway, so somebody will jump in. Trucks, big
Lorries.
trucks.
Lorries.
John in Newport Beach.
Thank you very much. Lorries.
Yeah, you're right.
All right.
Huh.
Polar bears and lorries.
Rick wants to know.
He's 2-0 today.
Rick wants to know if you could add Osmocote to cover the bases.
Oh, you're a
anything.
big Osmocote guy, aren't you?
I used to use Osmocote. I don't anymore. But yeah, Osmocote is nice, especially if you don't have to worry about it. You do it once at the beginning of the season. You don't have to worry about it the rest of the year.
That's why anytime I get a plant from John, there's Osmocote in there.
I know years
it's his
ago.
calling card.
I don't know if products change over the years, Tiger. So I don't know if Osmocote has changed the way it's released. But it used to be that there would be some damage to root hairs if it was mixed in the soil.
Oh, really?
So they would always recommend putting Osmocote on the top, or mix it into just the very top, not to put it in the soil. But I don't know if that's still true.
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah, I haven't used Osmocote in a long time.
Just one more thing.
Just throw in the
Happy Frog.
Sure Start fertilizers and stuff like that.
So Carl is telling Rick, get some Miracle Grow Organic from Costco. It's on sale this time of year. And add sand and pumice, mix it in a big tub, and you've got a lot ready to go. It's quite economical, and it usually works for me.
All right.
So that's what we've been saying.
It works.
If it works for you, do it. The word there that would make me think twice.
I know what you're going to say.
Usually.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah. I can't deal with usually. I need to be 100%.
No, you know what, though? That's not really true, because you and I are the same thought process at times, where when someone says that won't grow here, you can't do that, and we do it, and sometimes we're successful, usually. Hey, we have to take a break here. I'm just looking at the clock. One more segment coming up. As this show's been a lot of fun. Hope you're having a good time. Hope you're having fun. One more segment. Garden America back after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, final segment. I'm going to mark this down as, there you go.
Completed?
Not yet, but.
Are you keeping track of your score, too? Remember, give yourself 2 points. Polar bears and
what was the other
Lorry?
one? Lorries.
No,
yeah, but I didn't have the answer, though.
Yeah.
I just knew it. They weren't trucks.
Sometimes you deserve props for just thinking of the question.
True.
You don't always need the answer.
But you know what a boot is now, right, John?
Yeah.
If I told John, put it in the boot, he would pop the trunk.
There's a funny quote from that show Ted Lasso, because it's these guys from America going to England to coach soccer, and so the trunk is called the boot. Soccer cleats are called boots.
Boots?
Yeah, they call them boots. The soccer cleats, and then there was something else, and so I think like a backpack or a suitcase or something. And so he was commenting, so if I was to tell you, take your cleats, put them in the bag, put them in the trunk, I'd say take your boots, put them in boot, and then stick him in the boot. And he's like, yeah.
And not necessarily in that order, but pretty close.
Yeah.
John mentions, since we're on the topic of soil, that there's a great book called Finding the Mother Tree by Suzanne Simard. She says, he said, well, we might want to have a show focused on roots sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we could do that.
It's an old one of the first miniseries, right?
Back in the late 70s, right?
Yeah,
early
I never
80s?
saw it.
I saw it's one of those where for some reason you see like
Well, back
snippets.
then you couldn't go back and see
No.
what you missed. If you missed one, that was it.
Oh yeah, you don't know those days, do you?
Yeah, I do.
Do you really?
Yeah, before what was it? Was it TiVo? Remember the first thing that you could rewind or record your shows, or
I'm talking
because it was before DVR.
The very first time a friend of mine said, "Hey, I've got a video recorder." I'm like,
yeah.
really? Yeah, come over, I'll show you. And he had, the first movies that came out. And he stuck it in, and there it was on his TV. And he goes, "Watch, I can pause it." I'm just like, this was like,
yeah.
What, are you kidding me?
But I mean, so I was before they had that DVR or your ability.
So you remember
to,
TV? If you got up and left the room, you missed it.
That was it.
You missed it.
You hear yelling. You hear yelling in the room. Oh, what? And you come running back. And what I miss? What I miss?
Or come on, we're back. Come on, it's starting.
Yep, exactly.
Carla's getting in a preemptive apology.
Uh-oh.
She says that she's guessing Miracle Grow is a dirty word. No. But this is organic with no food in it. It's just good stuff. I didn't.
No, you didn't say anything.
I specifically tried not to say anything bad about Miracle Grow.
Yeah.
That's why I threw in. If it works for you, just use it.
If you like thin cell walls on a plant, then go ahead. There's nothing wrong with that.
She's talking about organic stuff, though.
Right, I know.
Yeah. I bought Scott's and Miracle Grow are still one company,
yes,
right?
They
are.
Scott's
yes, they
Miracle
are.
Grow.
Yep.
I bought 20 bags of
Scott's red mulch.
Black mulch.
Black mulch.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you hauled it in at midnight so nobody would see you.
It's funny when I put it down, it just looked black in the bag.
5 for $10.
It was clear when I put it on the ground.
Right? Isn't it like
translucent?
You know, it was last year
$5
was 5 for 10. Now it's 4 for 10.
Oh, is it?
25% increase.
Goodness gracious.
Anyway, I like the way that looks.
I like black.
Chipped up pallets is getting more expensive, I guess, huh?
Hey, I don't know. This kind of
you always used to paint it black.
This is kind of off the topic, but when you talked about the soil in Oregon, immediately what came to mind was Mount St. Helens when it erupted back in 1980.
Volcanic soils.
Yes, in that whole area.
It's Hawaii, all they have in Hawaii is volcanic soil.
Yeah. And northern Arizona, where I went to school, big volcanic area
soil.
right there, too, because the San Francisco
Flagstaff.
peaks are right there, Flagstaff.
Yeah.
And we used to ski in the Snow Bowl. There's a big bowl up there from when it exploded years ago, but great soil.
You guys have been to Fallbrook, right?
Yes.
How would you describe the town of Fallbrook?
The town?
Yeah, it's
Quaint.
Like driving through a little small Midwestern town.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cute.
It's not huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like everyone, Sam Drucker, him, he works at the drugstore.
Yeah.
Betty Lou's your
You
waitress
run
at the
into
cafe.
people at the store that you know.
Right.
Would you think they would put in a big, huge skateboard park?
Really? No.
Yeah. Why would you do that?
Well, what now?
I thought it was a new subdivision or something.
Now, where is it? Is it kind of on the outskirts, or is
No, it's on Fallbrook Street, right down the street from the Senior Citizen Center.
Hey.
Okay, here's what I thought you were going to say. First of all, maybe not. I thought you were going to say they're going to put in a huge Costco or a big Walmart right there.
But you know what I will say about Fallbrook, too? It's also well known for kind of extreme sports people to come out of. Because I think
Tony Hawk, did Tony Hawk come out of there?
No, I think that was Encinitas.
Okay,
But no, because you guys are so out there that people have property, so they ride motorcycles, they do mountain biking, they skateboard, and a lot of the youth out of that area grew up, I think, with those kinds of people. So I think that it probably is now getting to that point.
You want to impress people in Fallbrook, guy your age?
Not especially.
Go skateboard.
Get a helmet on,
Yeah.
and put a skateboard. Just carry a skateboard and a helmet around.
Yeah.
Don't even write it. Just carry it around, go into a store, go into a coffee shop, and just see what happens.
Just see what happens.
Skateboard under the arm, helmet on.
Yeah.
Don't even acknowledge it.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. Hey, we have to wrap things up here.
Oh, it's the end of the show, huh?
The end of the show. It's the end of an era.
We got to get to gardening then. Springtime. Everyone's got to get outside.
Yeah. Now the weather gets a little warmer. We can do a remote. Let's go someplace and do the show outside of the studio.
Let's do it.
We had some cosmetic questions we weren't even able to get to because
I can
Tanya's having trouble with her gorilla hair.
I can answer foundation questions as far as makeup. We can do that next week.
All right.
Permanent makeup's a big thing too.
Yeah, and I'm sorry we can't get to everyone's question that was left on here. Yeah. But
can you re-ask it next week if you remember?
We'll get to them.
And you can get a little testy with us. That's fine. You know, last week I asked a question and you ignored me.
Yeah.
Nobody answered it. We don't mind, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. And Rick ended the show with a really great question we couldn't get to.
Okay, save it for next week. We're going to tease you. We've got to go. Get a skedaddle, gang. Thanks to Biz Talk Radio, Stephanie. Thanks to Facebook Live. I'm Brian Main. John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox. Have a safe weekend. Enjoy your week. We'll reconvene next week right here from the iHeart Studios in San Diego and Garden America. Take care.